This is the Financially Simple Podcast, a show dedicated to destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner. And now, here's your host, pizza-loving, certified financial planner, Justin Goodbread.
Welcome to Financially Simple. This is a finance show for small business owners about money, how it works in our business and personal lives, and how we can build wealth to be financially independent. I'm your host, Justin Goodbread, and today is episode number 43. Today's episode is titled The Business Plan. This is actually part one of a two-part series on the business plan. Today, I want to just overview the business plan, answering questions like, what is a business plan? And why do I even need one of these crazy things? When do I develop a business plan? And what are the key components of a business plan? Now, we're going to have two parts to this. Next episode, I'm going to dive deep into the key components of a business plan. But today, I just want to answer some basic questions like, what is a business plan? You know, to me, a business plan is just an official statement of the company's objectives. The reason why those objectives are viable and the strategies to obtain success of those objectives. You know, a business plan is a process. Business planning is a process. That's it. And it yields a framework to which you can consider a broad range of issues that could impact the success of your business. So whenever I typically deal with business planning, I always use an analogy. I often compare a business plan to that of a vacation itinerary. Perhaps like me, you kind of know where you'd like to go on vacation. You know the destination. You may even know the time of the year when you want to take this trip. You may know the people you want to travel with. You probably have a budget. But before we actually take this trip, we've got to go through the planning phase. So a business plan moves our thoughts of, hey, here's a strategy for a business I have into action. So let's use the analogy of going on vacation, then we'll bring that back to what a business plan is. You know, in order for me to have a successful vacation, I need to know a few things. I need to know the destination, where I'm headed, the budget, who's traveling with me, timing, what time of the year am I doing this vacation, what events do we like to do, are there any specific requests? So let me provide an example, and I use this example often. Let's say I want to go on vacation with my wife and my 3 children, and I want to travel to Portland, Oregon. Now, I don't know why I choose Portland, Oregon. I've never been there. I'm sure it's a lovely city. I don't know why I choose Portland. I think sometime or another I need to drive to Portland. And so let's say that we want to go to Portland, Oregon, and we want to travel when the weather is mild. Okay. And we only want to spend $3,000 on this trip. And, you know, our family, we like to see some historical sites. Well, to make this trip a success, I need to know a few things. First of all, I need to know the travel arrangements. How am I going to get to Oregon? You know, if I only want to spend $3,000 on this trip, I can imagine that we are going to be driving in a car from Knoxville, Tennessee to Portland, Oregon. I may, though, want to look at some low-cost flights from a nearby airport. So near to Knoxville, we have obviously the Knoxville airport. We also have Chattanooga, which is about an hour and a half south. We have Nashville, which is about 2 hours due west of my house. Atlanta's a huge hub, and it's about 3 hours south of my house. So I may get a cheap flight from one of these direct flights from Nashville, Atlanta, Chattanooga, to Knoxville. But if I can't find a low-cost flight, more chances are I'm going to be driving. Well, then that leaves me with, where am I going to stay? Well, if we're driving from Knoxville to Oregon, I imagine it's not just a day trip, as you know. It's going to take a couple of days to get there, so we're going to have lodging along the way. When I reach Oregon, we're going to have some lodging. Well, we have a family of 5. So what we found works good for us is to stay like in a suite style hotel. Like they'll typically have 2 queen beds or 2 double beds. Most of the time they're queen beds, and then there's a couch, and the couch will sometimes fold out into a bed. And so oftentimes me and Emily, my wife, will sleep in one bed and the 2 boys will sleep in another. They're still young enough that doesn't bother them too much. And then my daughter, she conquers the couch. I mean, instantly she goes to the couch. She loves it. So maybe we just stay in a suite style hotel. You know, typically in the East Coast, we can get those for about $120 to $150 a night with proper planning. Perhaps though, we can't find that out there. So we decided to look for an Airbnb or like a VRBO.com location. Well, we have to deal with lodging. Then we have to deal with how we're going to feed our varmints. Our children love to eat. By the way, so does their daddy. And I could tell you, I love me some pizza. But I can't eat pizza every day on a trip. Well, maybe I could. Maybe I could. We need to try that. Maybe I could eat pizza every day on the way out there, but my family could not. So what are we going to feed our family on this trip? Are we going to eat out? Are we going to cook our own food? We've done that. We would take the crock pot with us to go on a low budget trip, put the crock pot in the room and put some potatoes and some meat inside there and go have a good time and come back. And now let's cook some rice and eat. We've done that before. So we have to deal with food. And then we got to deal with the entertainment. Now, we love some historical parks. There's a real nice historical park there in Portland from Lewis and Clark. Maybe we go there. But is there a cost to get in that park? I know sometimes there are. Our family plans on traveling near Gettysburg this year to see the Gettysburg Park and learn about the war between the states. Or as us Southerners say, the War of Northern Aggression. Oh, yeah. Once you're a Southerner, always a Southerner. But, we like to go to the historical parks. We had to figure out the cost there. Then we have contingencies that we had to plan on this trip. What happens if the car breaks down? What happens if we're near Yellowstone and we have some problems with the car? What happens if there's a major wreck on the interstate and we have to travel around that? So we have contingency planning. You see, many times we'll take a vacation and we'll go through all these planning to make it be our dream vacation. We spend lots of time and energy, or in my case, my wife spends lots of time and energy to make sure this vacation is just superb. Well, in similar fashion to that vacation planning that I just kind of talked through, a business plan asks and answers all the questions around taking a business from our starting destination, i.e. Knoxville, to our theoretic ending destination, i.e. Portland. So a business plan just asks all the questions and answers the questions around the foundation of the success of the business. So that gets us to what is the exact nature of the business? What are the driving values? So questions that it asks, what is the nature of the business? What drives the values of the business? Who specifically is our customer? What specifically is our product? What happens if we have a flat tire on the way out to Oregon? Or what happens if we have roadblocks in our business? Who's our competition? What areas of our business provide the most profit? What is the revenue projection of the company? And the questions continue. As I stated earlier, a properly designed business plan is no more than an official statement of the company's objectives, the reason why they're viable, and the strategies for attaining success. So go back to my trip. If I'm putting out a trip itinerary or a business plan analogy, then I can show why it's viable for me to travel to Portland, Oregon with my family of 5 and how we can have a trip. Or maybe as I go through that exercise of trying to identify, lodging and food and travel and all this other stuff, we realize that, hey guys, we can't travel to Portland, Oregon on $3,000 in the mild weather whenever everybody else is, and the hotel costs jack up and food costs increase. You see, a business plan helps us look through our business itinerary.
You are listening to Financially Simple, destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner.
So that leads me to the question of why do we even need a business plan? I mean, seriously, think about it. Why are we going through all the gyrations to try to answer all these questions before we launch out into business? When I began working with many, and I want to use the word novice, and I don't mean anything slanderous by that, please know me by that. But when I began working with novice entrepreneurs, I often hear this question of, dude, why do you want me to waste time on a business plan? And let's face it, I'm right here with you. Most entrepreneurs, we just want to charge the enemy gate with caution. I mean, throw caution in the wind. Let's just make it happen. And that's how we're made. I remember telling a statement my dad used to tell me to a business owner one time. I said, "Cool your jets there, Skippy." My dad used to say, "Son, cool your jets there, Skippy." And it was another way to just kind of get my attention to say, "Hey, let's think about this." I remember him looking at me saying, "Well, what did you just say?" I said, "I'm sorry. It's a Southern idiom." And he just laughed and we kind of moved forward. But, truth be told, there is much to be gained from a business plan. I mean, first thing first, a plan forces us to review everything at one time. I mean, we have to look at everything, and it's going to draw parallels between the various areas of business. So I heard an example one time, and I don't remember where I heard this. If you've heard this example before, please leave me a note in the show notes, and I'd love to give credit to where I heard this at. I can't remember. Let's say that your business relies on your marketing plan to sell 20,000 widgets, whatever the product is, of a particular item. And as you're going through your marketing plan, you realize you have to sell 20,000 of this particular item in order to have a viable business. But yet you only have one salesperson, one person in the marketing or sales department. You can form an analysis through asking the questions. When you review everything at one time, you can form an analysis to say, you know what, there's no way I'm going to get 20,000 widgets sold within the time frame that I need to sell it with one particular sales guy or gal. There's just no way. And maybe you can. Maybe your business, you can sell 20,000 widgets with one particular salesperson. Great. But what it does, candidly, is it allows us to look at every area of the business plan and draw analysis. Another benefit from a business plan is it allows us to forecast the future. Not like the weatherman. Guys, we had snow in April in Knoxville, Tennessee. That is wrong. You're not supposed to have snow in April. April 4th, I think it was. We had snowflakes falling. That's just wrong. The weatherman totally missed it. Actually, I think they called that one right. I think they did say we might have some snow flurries. But, most of the time the weatherman, or weatherwoman, they're doing the best they can. They just don't get it right. Well, in a business plan, we have the ability to forecast, ability to make predictions, to look at what possibly could happen. We can provide analysis for growth, expansion, employee hiring. I do this in my company today. I have a business plan that's ongoing, and I run analysis for myself on a regular basis. It helps me look at where I'm going and where I've been to show that where I've been and where I'm at and where I'm going is all in sync, that I'm headed in the right direction. Imagine that if my trip to Oregon, I started and I just drove and I never did any forecasting on where I'm headed that night. So obviously it's probably a 2 to 3 day trip from Knoxville to Portland, Oregon. And imagine if I just get in the car and all of a sudden I don't pay attention to my next forecast, to where I'm driving in the next 3 hours. I might end up, my luck, in Kalamazoo, Michigan. That is not the direction I need to head. That's north. For those of you who don't know the geography of the United States, we have some listeners in Australia. Kalamazoo, Michigan is north, almost due north of where I live in Knoxville. If I ended up there trying to get to Portland, we have a problem. Portland is more west, northwest. Another thing a business plan does for us, and this is probably one of the most important things for us, is it allows buy-in. It allows those who we need to buy in on our vision, to come alongside us. Maybe you need to show your business plan to a potential partner. Maybe you have a board that you're working with and you need to show them this. Maybe it's the bank. Maybe it's a lender. There's probably one person, though, that I need buy-in more than anything, and that's my spouse. Guys, being an entrepreneur is lonely. I think we know that. It gets really lonely. I mean, you can't talk to anybody, especially in my world of finance. I can't even talk to my wife about who I meet. I have some employees that we can talk to, but they don't share the same burden typically that a business owner does. When they leave at the end of the day, it's just the way the nature of the beast, and I'm not knocking them. But when they leave at the end of the day, they don't think about payroll. I hope not, at least. I hope they know that we're secure enough that they don't have to think that way. But I do. I think about, man, what happens if this happens or this happens? Can I meet payroll in the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months, 9 months, etc.? But our spouse, my wife, I need her to buy in on my dream, my vision, my everything of my business more so than anything else. She's the one person who has to buy in. Every employee, every business owner, every banker, they don't have to buy in, but my wife does. I can remember when we started a business, our second business. This was in 2002, 3, 4. I can't remember the exact day, but we had just sold one of our first ones, and we were living off a small income and the proceeds from our business. And I can remember coming home and saying, Emily, I want to start a new business. And she looked at me like, yeah, what? And I said, well, let me show you my vision. Let me show you what I'm looking at. And I can remember sitting down at the table and showing her on our little house, showing her what I wanted to do and what I think could happen. And I'd done all the work of the business plan. And she became the biggest cheerleader of my business instantly. She came alongside of me, and whenever I have times that are hard, whenever I have times that are tough, whenever we have good times, she's there to celebrate and prop me up. And guys, I'm just telling you, you got to have buy-in from your spouse or your significant other. You have to. Yeah, your mama's going to cheer you on. They should. That's the way God designed it. Your daddy's going to cheer you on. They should. That's the way God designed it. Your employees will sometime, but man, you got to have your spouse buy-in. So if nothing else, do your business plan for your mate. So that leads me to a question here. When do I need to develop a business plan? I recommend that prospective business owners do the plan starting up at the beginning of the business before it ever launches. I want them to plan the startup. I want them to plan what they could accomplish. Now, if you do the business planning properly in the startup, you can eliminate a lot of heartache. You can. Every business I started up, with the exception of my first one, I did some business planning. I sat down, I knew what I wanted to accomplish. I identified the different analysis of the plan. We're going to talk about that next, but I went through it in detail. Now, could I predict everything that was going to happen? No, there's no way. Let's be serious. But it helped me at least get my thoughts together. Whenever you're underway in business, though, perhaps you're listening to this and saying, dude, Justin, I've already got a business up and going. I've never done a business plan. Why not pause for a bit? Why not in the evenings one night, sit down and walk through a business plan? You're going to learn so much about your business, things that you never thought about. Or perhaps you thought about them, but you've never taken the time to analyze them or quantify them. Personally, friends, I use business planning as part of my annual planning. I have an ongoing business plan. I update it quarterly. I don't do it every month, but one time a year, for me, typically in late December, early January, I'm updating my business plan. And then I can use that updated plan to share with my team of employees. I can share it with my business partners in the businesses. I can share it with my spouse. I at least know what my mission is for that year. So when do you need a business plan? If you don't have one in your business, let's stop and take some time and build one. If you've not started your business, and friends, I would say just take a little time, breathe through it. Let's think through this process. So that leads me to the question of, well, what are the components of a business plan? There are roughly 9 elements to a business plan. And today I just want to create an overview. Next episode, I'm going to go through these in detail. Today, I just want to give you an overview and say, here are the 9 elements of the business plan. So the first element is, it's just a company description. What is it that the company does? If you're a grass cutting business, you cut grass. Maybe you do landscaping. Well, the next thing is going to be a market analysis. And you're going to tell the reader, perhaps yourself, about your industry. How many grass cutters are there in your area? What specific challenges do you have in your area of business? The next thing is going to be the organizational management. And that's a fancy term to say who's on your team. If you're by yourself, then you're a solopreneur. That's a word I heard recently. I thought that was interesting. I'd never heard that before. But if you're by yourself, you're a true solopreneur. If you have a partnership, who's your partner? If you have a member-managed company, then who's your member? Tell me about your team. Maybe you have some key employees. Tell me about them. Who are they? Why are they key to you? Next thing you're going to do, part number 4, is you're going to tell me about your products or services. What is it specifically that you sell? Or what is it that you're offering? The 5th thing we're going to deal with is the marketing and sales. How are you going to get your product or service in the hands of the potential buyer? That's a biggie. That's often underutilized to me. That's one of the areas that I see so many people struggle with. The next one is funding. Are you going to have enough money to get your company off the ground? Yikes. That's probably the biggest. So many businesses fall under for not having right funding. Another one is financial projections. Show me the money, right? I want to see what your company's going to look like. Show me the benefit of what your company provides and how it's going to benefit the industry and yourself and the business. Maybe an appendix. And so we're going to cover the appendix and what that is. And ultimately, there's going to be an executive summary. It's going to be a high-level view of your company. And friends, that's a business plan. That's a business plan. So, many times I hear, Justin, why do I need a business plan? Well, we just kind of outline that. It helps you identify where you're going and where you need to be. It helps you think through the process. Helps you get buy-in from your team members. You typically need to do it early. If you haven't started your business, great. If you have started your business and you haven't done one, why don't we take a break and let's work through this together? Now, in our next episode, we're going to look specifically at the 9 elements of a business plan. But until then, I want to thank you for joining me on the Financially Simple Podcast. And as always, show notes and links for today's podcast will be found at financiallysimple.com under the heading podcast. Hey, if you like the show, please subscribe. If you don't like the show, share it with a friend. Tell them why you don't like it. If you feel like to drop me a note on a particular subject you'd like me to cover, do so. I actually had an email come in this last week on a subject. I'm like, that's a great subject. Let's deal with that. And we're going to be adding that very soon. Our blog is financiallysimple.com, and you can sign up to receive our weekly newsletter and stay up to date with tax planning tips, business planning tips, wealth management tips. Let me tell you, some of the best writing I do goes out in this newsletter on a weekly basis. If you're missing it, friends, you're missing it. It's some good information. And like I say every week, life is hard, life is good, and life can be frustrating. Money, Lord have mercy, money doesn't have to be frustrating. Let's continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Hey, y'all go out and create a great day.
You have been listening to the Financially Simple podcast. The information in this show is for informational purposes only. This show is not investment advice. Instead, seek help from a competent financial advisor. Justin Goodbread, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Heritage Investors, a registered investment advisor.